So all of the coins on the desk here are legal currency here in the United States. So if you want a really short version of this video, well, I guess I could take these down the street and pick up about $630 worth of chips. I think that's how Mr. Beast got his start. So it's pretty rare to hear somebody talk about how to use gold and silver. Like, what would you do with it once you have it? To some, it's pretty simple. You just bury it in your basement, expect to never need it. Others say maybe pile it up because you will need it. Not yet, but soon. And I probably made those two ideas seem more different than they actually are, because in both cases, gold and silver would be just in case assets. The only difference between the two camps really is how likely and how soon that need might be. But there are other reasons to have gold and silver, and even potential ways to use them along the way. And we're going to look at a few. So first off, let's just cover some quick facts. Now, I don't compare physical gold and silver to the stock market, but we're going to do it here for the sake of just getting the whole story out. The S&P 500, it has gained 10.7% annually on average since it was introduced in 1957. Now, the past 10 years have been better, more like 14.7% annually. And if we use that same period, that same 10 years, the story does not look great for gold, since it's only up 10% over that entire period. It's an inconvenient time frame for gold. Now, if we were to use that same 10-year time frame 6 months from now, it will look a lot different, because the price of gold fell to $1,200 by June of 2013. Either way, holding an index fund over those 10 years would have outperformed metals. And if we looked at silver, that would be even worse, because it lost 20.4% over those same 10 years. So once again, off-balance time frame for price comparisons, but the S&P 500 would have returned 254%. Now, since we're picking arbitrary time frames, we'll tell the 20-year story as well. In that time frame, gold outperforms the S&P 500. You've probably heard that. The price of gold increased 430% from 2002 through 2022. S&P 500 in that same time frame increased 390%. Now, you would still never hear me call gold or silver a growth asset, at least not if we're talking about the physical metals. Now, just being real about what it is to me, gold is really just a long-term savings model. Silver's kind of similar. The way I use it depends on my circumstances. If something big came up, maybe it's an opportunity or a huge expense, I would sell the gold, I would take care of the emergency or take advantage of the opportunity, and then I go back to buying it again little by little. But either one of those reasons to sell would have to be big enough that I couldn't cover them with whatever other capital that I had quick access to. I see people say that there's just no way they'd ever sell their gold or silver, and that makes it pretty clear that they see it as having one single use, a use only in a total collapse. Now, this is a big reason that you don't see many people talking about how you can use it, because most people just don't. You will see people say that silver is for barter, and maybe they'll give an anecdotal use like a farmer's market, but usually it's for some kind of fantasy situation, like the end of the world as we know it. For the record, I don't question that view. You have to give it to the person who plans for an unlikely outcome over the person who just doesn't plan at all. Dave Ramsey has pretty famously said, people run to gold out of fear or greed. And he might be right, some might, but others probably do it out of self-sufficiency. And maybe that's not conventional enough for Dave, who is pretty proud of his 100 million plus net worth. But some of us live a little closer to the ground. And where I differ from Dave is that I think there's a conventional use for it. Where I differ from the never sell crew is that I will use gold or silver if it's good for my family, apocalypse or not. Now, the way that I've used metals in the past is pretty common. I've sold some gold to put towards some real estate. I've used silver to fund some long shot investments, are relatively basic ideas. Now, those were not direct purchases. I didn't buy a property with a pile of gold coins, but that's where some of the capital came from. And you could say that I could have simply kept separate savings accounts or held that savings in cash, but I've found that I don't have the same drive to save cash, and I'm more likely to tap into savings accounts. The director of Fight Club, David Fincher, had a great line. He said that we're designed to be hunters, and we're in a society of shopping. There's nothing to kill anymore, nothing to fight, nothing to overcome, and nothing to explore. Basically, nothing big left for us to do. So we end up wasting money buying things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like. That last part came straight from the author, Chuck Palahniuk. Now, where I'm going with this is that we get the same dopamine hit buying a gold coin that we would get buying something we don't need to impress someone we don't like. And probably more of a hit. To me, that's a big part of how anyone can use metals. I've used it to build something in small steps with capital that maybe I wouldn't have otherwise had. And anyone can do that at any time. When this question comes up, though, in comments, people don't want to hear that. They want to hear how they can use gold and silver directly, everyday transactions. And to me, this is still a little bit of an unlikely case because it just isn't easy. It requires a few things happening at the same time. One person has to have the gold that another person wants, and the second person has to have the thing the first person wants. And to make it a little bit more difficult, both of them then have to agree on the value of both of those things. It doesn't make it impossible. Farmers markets, those are decent examples of how it could work. And I've heard from others that are willing to trade services, willing to trade goods for gold and silver, but it would be hard for me to find anyone to make that trade without knowing about it ahead of time. Now, the other problem is the tax on silver and gold. It's not the way you think. The tax in this case is the premium that you pay when you buy gold and silver. A lot of that gets lost when you sell or trade. So that makes it a very expensive unit of exchange. It still doesn't make it impossible, and there are projects out there like Goldbacks that are trying to overcome it, but there are a lot of good reasons why it's just not common today. Now, there are emergencies that I think could change things a little bit, and emergencies that are somewhere between normal everyday surprises and the apocalypse, where gold and silver might be useful in common cases, especially if you're in certain locations. If you're stuck in the mountains with a stack of silver eagles, you're probably more likely to find people who understand precious metals. At least more likely than if you're stuck, say, in the Bay Area. And I'm going to let you use your imagination on possible events, but I would be happy to have something as recognizable as a silver eagle that I could trade in a lot of different crazy situations, and maybe it wouldn't work in San Francisco, but their definition of crazy is probably different than mine to begin with. If I was using it, I would think of a silver eagle as a $20 bill, maybe $30 bill now, if there was such a thing. Pretty easy. I would think of an American gold eagle as $200, $500, $1,000, $2,000, depending on the size. It'd be for a 10th ounce, quarter, half, or 1 ounce. Now, I wouldn't get that much for it, but those are the amounts that most people who know gold and silver would probably think of. So for silver, I've always thought that it just doesn't hurt to have some around the way that you might have, say, a stack of $20 bills. But gold is not for everyday transactions for me, and I can't see a case where it ever would be. I might negotiate something, maybe a trade using gold, but that would be planned well in advance. Another possible case would be using gold for collateral for a loan, because gold is a tier 1 asset and some banks will actually allow it as collateral, the same that they would allow, say, a property, some kind of real estate. I've never pulled it off personally, but it's possible. Outside of that, it is for big events, and in those cases, it's a 2-part transaction. Trade the gold for cash, use the cash for the purchase. So that's my view in a nutshell, my rationale for holding gold, rationale for holding silver. Now, you might have other reasons, other thoughts on how to use it in more common cases, but to me, the savings aspect is where it's at. It has a dual benefit. It's something I like to buy, which means that I'm saving what I might have otherwise wasted, and it's something that I don't like to sell. That keeps me from raiding the account for a new motorcycle. And that's a strong enough answer, to me at least, for how to use gold without using it for everyday things. Boots, bullets, groceries, whatever. So here's where you come in. Let us know what you think. I know from the comments and other videos that a lot of people are interested in this topic and the idea of using metals for everyday purchases. So if you have stories to tell, drop them in the comments. Now, I'm interested in your take either way, so let us know what you're up to. And then while you're there, be sure to hit the like button if you found any of this interesting. Be sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on if you'd like to see more on the topic. And if you're still here, thanks again for watching. I always appreciate your time. Take care.